The transport ship Peaceful Trader dropped out of hyperspace with a gentle shudder. Captain Sarah Chen pressed her face against the small porthole and watched Kepler 442b grow larger. The planet looked like a blue-green marble with white clouds swirling across its surface. It seemed so calm and beautiful from space. Sarah stretched her arms and rolled her shoulders. The 3-week journey from Earth had been boring. She was ready to get back to work. Her job was simple: fix the water cleaning systems on the Volari colony. The little crystal people had been having problems with their machines for months. The ship's captain, a friendly centauri named Bex, walked over to her. "We'll be landing in 20 minutes, Sarah. Are you ready?" Sarah nodded and picked up her tool bag. It was heavy with Earth-made equipment, but she carried it easily. "Ready as I'll ever be." "How many Volari live down there?" "About 2,000, Bex said. "They're good people. Peaceful farmers mostly. They grow the best crystal fruits in this sector." He paused and looked worried. "Just try not to scare them too much," Sarah laughed. "I'm not scary. I'm an engineer." Beck smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "You're human, Sarah. That's scary enough for most people." Sarah had heard this before. Humans came from Earth, which the galaxy called a death world. Other species thought Earth was too dangerous for life. They said the gravity was too strong, the air was poison, and everything tried to kill everything else. To them, any creature that evolved on Earth had to be a monster. The truth was much simpler. Earth was just home. Sarah grew up in New Shanghai, went to engineering school, and joined the Galactic Engineering Corps. She fixed machines and helped people. She didn't understand why everyone was so afraid of humans. The ship landed with a soft bump. Sarah could hear the engines powering down. Through the porthole, she saw a small spaceport with gleaming crystal buildings. Everything looked clean and bright. Gardens with strange glowing plants grew between the structures. "Remember," Bex said as the airlock opened, "move slowly. Don't make sudden movements. And maybe—" "Smile less? Your teeth make them nervous," Sarah sighed. "I'll try." The planet's air smelled like flowers and rain. The gravity was lighter than Earth's, making Sarah feel like she could jump over buildings. She had to be careful not to bounce when she walked. The last thing she wanted was to look like a threat. A small group of Volari waited near the ship. They looked like walking crystals, about 4 feet tall, with bodies that caught and reflected the sunlight. Beautiful but fragile, Sarah could see their leader, a tall Volari with blue crystal skin standing behind 2 guards. As Sarah approached, all 3 Volari took a step back. The guards held crystal spears that looked more decorative than dangerous. The leader, who Sarah guessed was the colony administrator, spoke in a high musical voice. "Welcome to New Harmony, human engineer. I am Administrator Kelthera. We are grateful for your help." Sarah stopped walking when she was still 10 feet away. Any closer and they might run. "Thank you, Administrator. I'm Sarah Chen. I'm here to fix your water systems." Kelthera nodded quickly. Yes. "The main processing plant is not working correctly. The water tastes strange and some of our crystal gardens are not growing well." "I'll take a look and figure out what's wrong," Sarah said. She kept her voice soft and friendly. "Can you show me where the plant is?" "Of course, please. Follow at a distance." The walk through the colony was strange. Volari peeked at Sarah from behind crystal buildings and garden walls. Children quickly hid when she looked their way. Parents pulled their young ones inside when the group passed. Sarah felt like a monster in a fairy tale. The water processing plant was a beautiful building made of clear and blue crystals. It hummed with energy, but Sarah could hear that the sound was wrong. Something was definitely broken inside. "When did the problem start?" Sarah asked as they approached the main entrance. 3 months ago, Kelthera said. "The water became cloudy. Then it started tasting bitter. Our engineers tried to fix it, but they could not find the problem." Sarah nodded. "I'll need to look at the main filters and the cleaning chambers. Can someone show me around inside?" Kelthera hesitated. We will provide you with technical drawings. You can work alone." Sarah understood. They were too scared to be in an enclosed space with her. "That's fine. I work better alone anyway." Kelthera handed her a crystal tablet with building plans. "There is a guest house near the plant where you can stay. Meals will be delivered to your door." "Thank you," Sarah said. "I'll start work first thing tomorrow." As the Volari left, Sarah looked around the plant. The problem was probably simple: a clogged filter or a broken sensor. She had fixed hundreds of similar systems on dozens of worlds. This job should take a week at most. She walked to the guest house, a small crystal building with comfortable furniture sized for humans. Someone had clearly prepared for her visit. There was a bed, a desk, and even a small kitchen with Earth-compatible food. Sarah unpacked her tools and equipment. Her diagnostic scanner would help her find the problem quickly. Her repair kit had spare parts for most common issues, and if she needed to build something new, her portable fabricator could make almost any component. As the sun set, the crystal buildings began to glow with soft light. The colony looked magical in the twilight. Sarah could see Valari moving through the streets, but they stayed far from her building. She was completely alone on a world full of people. A knock at her door surprised her. She opened it to find a small Valari child, no taller than Sarah's waist, holding a basket of crystal fruits. The child looked up at Sarah with large, bright eyes. "For you," the child said in a tiny voice. "From my mother. She says thank you for helping us." Sarah knelt down to be at the child's eye level. "What's your name?" "Zintar," the child whispered. "Thank you, Zintar. These look delicious." Sarah took the basket carefully. The fruits felt warm and smooth like colored glass. The child stared at her for a moment. "Are you really from the scary world?" Sarah smiled gently. "I'm from Earth, but I'm not scary. I just want to help your people have clean water. My mother says humans are very strong and brave." "Sometimes we have to be," Sarah said, "but mostly we just want to help our friends." Zintar nodded seriously, then ran back toward the crystal buildings. Sarah watched the child go, feeling a warm sensation in her chest. Maybe this job would be more than just fixing machines. Maybe she could help these people understand that humans weren't monsters. She closed the door and looked at the crystal fruits. They glowed softly in the dim light, beautiful and strange. Tomorrow she would start work on the water plant. Tonight, she would enjoy the gift from her first friend on this peaceful world. Sarah had no way of knowing that in just a few days, everything would change. She had no idea that war was coming to this quiet colony, or that she would be the only thing standing between the gentle Valari and complete destruction. For now, she was just an engineer on a simple repair job, trying not to scare the local population. The galaxy was vast and full of wonders, and Sarah was happy to be a small part of it. Sarah woke up early on her third day at the colony. She had found the problem with the water plant, old filters and a broken cleaning system. The repair work was going well, and she expected to finish by the end of the week. She walked to the plant as the sun came up, enjoying the quiet morning. The crystal buildings caught the early light and threw rainbows across the streets. A few Valari farmers were already working in their gardens, tending to glowing plants that Sarah had never seen before. The colonists were getting used to her presence. They still kept their distance, but they no longer ran away when they saw her. Yesterday, Administrator Kelthara had even brought her lunch personally, though he stayed near the door the whole time. Sarah was deep inside the water plant, replacing a damaged filter assembly, when the first explosions shook the building. The crystal walls vibrated, and her tools scattered across the floor. She grabbed her scanner and ran outside. The sky was dark with ships. Huge black vessels hung in the air like storm clouds. They were nothing like the peaceful trade ships that usually visited the colony. These ships had weapons, lots of them. Energy beams lanced down from the ships, striking the spaceport and government buildings. Sarah watched in horror as one of the crystal towers exploded in a shower of sparkling fragments. She could hear screaming from the streets as Valari ran for cover. More ships kept coming, dozens of them filling the sky with shadows. Drop pods began falling like metal rain. They crashed into the streets and gardens, crushing buildings and destroying the beautiful crystal artwork. The pods split open and soldiers poured out. Sarah had never seen this species before, but she knew immediately they were trouble. The soldiers were tall and reptilian, with dark green scales and red eyes. They wore black armor and carried energy weapons. They moved with military precision, spreading out through the colony in organized groups. These were professional soldiers, not pirates or raiders. Sarah ducked behind a crystal wall as a squad of the alien soldiers marched past. She counted 10 soldiers in the group, all armed with rifles and moving in perfect formation. Their leader barked orders in a harsh, guttural language she didn't recognize. The Valari were helpless. Sarah saw families huddled together as the soldiers swept through the streets. The crystal people had no weapons, no army, no way to fight back. Their peaceful society had never prepared for something like this. A Valari child ran past Sarah's hiding spot, crying for its mother. One of the soldiers raised his weapon, pointing it at the small figure. Sarah didn't think. She just moved. She grabbed a piece of broken crystal and threw it as hard as she could. The jagged fragment hit the soldier in the head, knocking him backward. The other soldiers spun around looking for the attacker. Sarah pressed herself against the crystal wall, trying to stay hidden. Her heart was pounding. The soldiers searched for several minutes before moving on. The child had escaped, but Sarah knew she was in serious trouble now. More soldiers marched through the streets. Sarah could see them setting up checkpoints and guard posts. They were taking control of the colony systematically, cutting off escape routes and securing important buildings. This wasn't a raid. It was a full military occupation. She needed to get back to her guest house and figure out what to do. Sarah moved carefully through the back streets, staying in shadows and avoiding the soldier patrols. The skills she learned hiking and camping on Earth served her well here. She knew how to move quietly and stay hidden. The guest house was empty, but Sarah could see soldiers had been there. Her belongings were scattered around, searched but not destroyed. They were looking for something, but they hadn't found anything important. Her real equipment was still hidden in the water plant. Through her window, Sarah watched the invaders establish their base at the spaceport. More ships were landing, bringing vehicles and heavy weapons. She counted at least 1,000 soldiers already on the ground, with more arriving every hour. A group of Valari was being herded into the town square. Sarah recognized some of them, farmers and shopkeepers she had seen during her time here. The soldiers forced them to kneel while their leader spoke through a translation device. "People of this colony," the alien commander said in accented galactic standard, "you are now under the protection of the Korthak Dominion. Cooperate with our forces and you will not be harmed. Resist and you will face the consequences." Sarah had heard of the Korthak Dominion. They were a military empire that conquered weaker species and used them as slaves. They had taken control of several colonies in this sector over the past few years. The galaxy's peacekeeping forces were too far away to stop them. The commander continued his speech. "We require workers for our mining operations. The strongest among you will be selected for transport to our industrial worlds. The rest will maintain this colony under our supervision." Sarah felt sick. These weren't just invaders, they were slavers. They were going to tear families apart and force the gentle Valari to work in alien mines. The crystal people were too peaceful and fragile for hard labor. Many of them would die. She had to do something, but what? Sarah was just one person against an entire army. She had no weapons, no military training, no way to contact help. The nearest human settlement was weeks away by hyperspace, but she couldn't just watch. The Valari had welcomed her to their world. They had shared their food and treated her with kindness even though they were afraid. Little Zintar had brought her crystal fruits as a gift. These people were under her protection now, whether they knew it or not. Sarah thought about Earth, about the stories her grandfather told about human history. Humans had always been outnumbered. They had faced bigger predators, hostile environments, and impossible odds. But they had survived by being clever, adaptable, and absolutely refusing to give up. The Korthak soldiers were experienced and well-armed, but they were also arrogant. They saw the Valari as helpless victims and didn't expect any real resistance. They probably didn't even know there was a human on the planet. That could be an advantage. Sarah looked at her hands. They were steady, even though her heart was racing. She had grown up under Earth's heavy gravity, breathing Earth's thick air, dealing with Earth's dangerous weather. Her bones were dense, her muscles were strong, and her reflexes were fast. The Korthak had never faced anything like a human before. The water plant had tools, equipment, and raw materials. Sarah was an engineer. She knew how to build things, fix things, and make things work. The plant also had the colony's main computer system, which controlled power, communications, and security. As night fell, Sarah made her decision. She couldn't save the Valari by running away or hiding. She couldn't call for help that wouldn't arrive in time. But she could fight. She could make the Korthak pay for every day they stayed on this peaceful world. The invaders thought they had conquered a helpless farming colony. They had no idea they had just picked a fight with a Deathworlder. Sarah smiled grimly as she began planning her war against an army. The Korthak were about to learn why the galaxy feared humans. She gathered her tools and headed for the water plant. It was time to show these alien bullies what happened when they threatened her people. Sarah reached the water plant just after midnight. The crystal building was dark and empty, which was perfect for her plans. She slipped inside through a maintenance entrance and made her way to the main control room. The plant's computer system was more advanced than she had expected. It controlled not just water processing, but also power distribution, communication networks, and even some industrial equipment around the colony. Sarah smiled as she accessed the system. The Korthak had made a big mistake by not securing this facility. She spent the next few hours learning everything she could about the colony's infrastructure. The Volari had built their settlement efficiently, with underground tunnels connecting major buildings. There were maintenance shafts, utility corridors, and service passages that the invaders didn't know about. Sarah also discovered that the colony had more resources than she had realized. There was a mining operation on the far side of the settlement, complete with explosives and heavy machinery. A construction site near the spaceport had building equipment and raw materials. Even the farming areas had tools and chemicals that could be useful. As the sun came up, Sarah watched the Korthak patrols through the plant's security cameras. The alien soldiers moved in predictable patterns, checking the same locations at the same times. They were professional, but they were also following standard military procedures. That made them predictable, and predictable enemies could be defeated. The real test came when Sarah saw what the Korthak were doing to the Volari families. Through the cameras, she watched soldiers separate parents from children, loading the strongest adults onto transport vehicles. The crystal people cried and reached for each other as they were torn apart. One scene made Sarah's blood boil. Little Zintar, the child who had brought her fruit, was hiding behind his mother as soldiers approached. A Korthak officer grabbed the child roughly, examining him like livestock. When Zintar's mother tried to protect her son, the soldier hit her with the back of his hand, sending her flying across the street. Something primal awakened in Sarah's chest. It was the same feeling her ancestors had when wolves threatened their children, when stronger tribes invaded their territory, when everything they cared about was in danger. The peaceful engineer disappeared, replaced by something far more dangerous. Sarah's hands moved across the control panel with deadly purpose. She started with small things, turning off power to the soldiers' barracks for a few seconds, causing communication static during important transmissions, making the water in their temporary base taste terrible. The Korthak noticed these problems but dismissed them as technical difficulties. Then Sarah got creative. She used the mining explosives first, rigging them with remote detonators made from plant equipment. Her first target was a Korthak supply depot that had been set up in the colony's old warehouse district. The explosion lit up the night sky. Sarah watched through the security cameras as Korthak soldiers rushed to the burning building, trying to salvage their supplies. While they were distracted, she activated her second surprise: construction robots that she had reprogrammed during the day. The mining mechs weren't designed for combat, but Sarah had given them new instructions. They attacked the soldiers with drilling arms and lifting claws, causing chaos and confusion. The Korthak soldiers fired at the machines, but the robots were built to survive in dangerous mining conditions. They kept fighting until the soldiers brought up heavy weapons to stop them. By dawn, Sarah had destroyed 2 supply depots, damaged 3 patrol vehicles, and eliminated an entire squad of soldiers. The Korthak commander was furious, demanding answers from his subordinates. They had no idea what was happening. General Thexvar, the Korthak leader, called his officers together for an emergency meeting. Sarah listened to their conversation through hacked communication channels. They spoke in their own language, but the plant's computer had translation software. Who is responsible for these attacks? Thexvar demanded. Are there hidden military forces on this planet? No, General, one officer replied. Our scans show no organized military presence. The colonists are all accounted for and secured. Then explain how our facilities are being destroyed. It could be automated defense systems, sir. Perhaps the colonists programmed their machines to activate after a certain time. Thexvar wasn't convinced. Double the patrols. Check every building, every tunnel, every hiding place. Find whoever is responsible and bring them to me alive. Sarah smiled as she listened. They still thought they were dealing with Volari resistance or automated systems. It hadn't occurred to them that one person could cause this much damage. That was fine with her. The longer they stayed confused, the more damage she could do. Her next target was bigger and more dangerous. The Korthak had set up a communication array on the colony's highest building. using it to coordinate with their fleet and call for reinforcements. Sarah needed to destroy it, but the building was heavily guarded. She spent 2 days planning the attack, studying guard rotations and identifying weak points. The breakthrough came when she realized she could use the colony's weather control system. The Volari used atmospheric processors to maintain perfect growing conditions for their crystal gardens. Sarah modified the weather system to create a massive electrical storm. Lightning struck the communication array repeatedly, overwhelming its defenses and frying its circuits. The Korthak soldiers tried to repair the damage, but every time they got close to fixing it, another lightning bolt would destroy their work. While the soldiers were dealing with the storm, Sarah struck at their vehicle depot. She had rigged the fuel supplies with delayed charges, turning their own energy cells into bombs. Half their transport fleet was destroyed in a series of spectacular explosions. The Korthak were getting desperate. They started taking hostages, threatening to kill Volari civilians if the attacks didn't stop. Sarah watched through the cameras as they lined up crystal families in the town square, weapons pointed at innocent people. "We know someone is out there," General Thexvar announced through loudspeakers. "Show yourself or these people will die." Sarah felt rage burning in her chest. The Korthak were cowards, hiding behind helpless civilians. But she couldn't reveal herself yet, not when she could do more damage from the shadows. Instead, she found another way to respond. Every screen in the colony suddenly displayed the same message written in multiple languages. "Release the hostages. Leave this world. This is your only warning." The message was signed with a simple symbol, a circle with a line through it, the universal symbol for no or stop. Sarah wanted the Korthak to know they were dealing with someone who understood their language and their technology. General Thexvar stared at the message in confusion and anger. "What does this mean? Who sent this?" His communications officer was pale with fear. "Sir, this message bypassed all our security systems. Whoever sent it has complete control over the colony's computer networks." "That's impossible. Our technology is superior to anything these primitive beings could create." Sarah laughed as she listened to their conversation. They still didn't understand what they were facing. The Korthak saw advanced technology as the answer to everything, but Sarah had learned that the best solutions were often the simplest ones. She was done playing games. The Korthak had threatened innocent people under her protection. They had hurt children and torn families apart. They had brought war to a peaceful world, and now they were going to pay the price. Sarah began preparing for the next phase of her campaign. She had proven she could strike at them from a distance, but now it was time to get personal. The alien invaders were about to discover why humans were called Deathworlders. The war between one human engineer and an alien army was about to begin in earnest, and Sarah intended to win. General Thexvar was losing his mind. In just 1 week, he had lost 30% of his equipment, 50 soldiers, and all communication with his fleet. His officers jumped at shadows, and his troops were afraid to patrol alone. Somewhere on this peaceful farming colony, an invisible enemy was hunting his forces. "Sir," his intelligence officer reported, "we've analyzed the attack patterns. The enemy shows knowledge of our tactics, our technology, and our weak points. This isn't random vandalism. It's professional military action." Thexvar slammed his fist on the table. "That's impossible. Our scans showed no military forces on this planet. Just farmers and crystal builders. Perhaps we missed something, General. Maybe there's a hidden military base or special forces soldiers disguised as colonists." The general stared at the tactical display showing his losses. Red marks covered the map where his facilities had been destroyed. The pattern looked random, but he could see the intelligence behind it. His enemy was hitting supply lines, communication nodes, and isolated outposts. Classic guerrilla warfare. What Thexvar didn't know was that Sarah was watching him through hacked security cameras. She studied his face, learning to read his expressions and mood. The alien general was frustrated and angry, which meant he was starting to make mistakes. Sarah had been busy during the past week. She had mapped every tunnel and maintenance shaft in the colony. She knew where the Korthak kept their supplies, where they slept, and when they changed their guards. More importantly, she had been gathering weapons and equipment from around the settlement. The colony's mining operation had provided her with industrial explosives and cutting tools. The construction sites gave her metal plates and welding equipment. Even the farming areas had useful materials. Some of the fertilizers could be turned into makeshift bombs with the right chemical knowledge. Sarah's engineering background was proving invaluable. She could build traps from scrap metal, turn construction equipment into weapons, and modify simple tools into deadly devices. The Korthak had superior technology, but Sarah had something they lacked: creativity born from a lifetime of solving problems. Her next target was a patrol that had been terrorizing Valari families. Sarah had watched them through the cameras, seen how they pushed around the crystal people and took whatever they wanted. These soldiers needed to learn some manners. The patrol followed the same route every night, down Main Street, around the residential district, and back to their base. Sarah prepared her trap at a narrow point between two crystal buildings, where the soldiers would have to walk single file. She rigged shaped charges on both sides of the street, hidden behind decorative crystal formations. When the patrol reached the kill zone, Sarah detonated the explosives. The Korthak soldiers were caught completely by surprise, trapped in a narrow space with nowhere to run. But Sarah wasn't done. As the surviving soldiers tried to regroup, she attacked from above using a construction mech she had reprogrammed. The machine dropped from the roof of a nearby building, its drilling arms spinning. The soldiers fired at it, but their energy weapons barely scratched the heavy industrial armor. 3 soldiers died in the initial attack. 2 more were seriously wounded. The patrol leader managed to call for backup before Sarah's mech crushed his communication device. When reinforcements arrived 20 minutes later, they found only empty streets and broken equipment. General Thexavar studied the after-action reports with growing unease. The attack was too coordinated, he told his officers. Someone modified that construction machine for combat. Someone with advanced technical knowledge. Should we round up all the colonists with engineering backgrounds? An officer suggested. We already checked them. They're all accounted for in the detention centers. Thexvar paused, struck by a sudden thought. Wait, what about off-world visitors? Were there any foreign nationals on the planet when we arrived? His intelligence officer checked the records. Yes, sir. 1 human engineer, here on a maintenance contract. Name is Sarah Chen, assigned to repair water processing equipment. Thexvar felt his blood run cold. A human? Why wasn't I told about this immediately? She seemed unimportant, sir. Just a civilian technician. We assumed she was hiding with the other colonists. You fool, Thexvar roared. Humans are from a death world. They're natural predators, born killers. How could you not report this? The officer looked confused. But sir, it's just 1 person. What could 1 human do against our entire force? Thexvar looked at the tactical display showing his losses. Everything we've seen so far, find her. Search every building, every tunnel, every hiding place. Use scanners, heat sensors, whatever it takes. Find the human! Sarah watched the conversation through hacked communications and smiled grimly. They finally knew what they were dealing with, but it was too late. She had been preparing for this moment, setting up multiple safe houses and escape routes throughout the colony. The Korthak search began immediately. Soldiers swept through the settlement in organized teams, checking every possible hiding place. They used advanced sensors to scan for human life signs, hoping to track Sarah's location. But Sarah had learned something during her weeks on the colony. Crystal formations interfered with Korthak scanning equipment. The Valari buildings weren't just beautiful. They created natural blind spots that technology couldn't penetrate. Sarah used these dead zones to stay hidden while the soldiers searched around her. From her hiding place in an abandoned crystal workshop, Sarah planned her next move. The Korthak were now actively hunting her, which meant she needed to change tactics. No more hiding in the shadows. It was time for direct action. She had been working on a special project using equipment from the mining operation. Sarah had built a suit of improvised armor from metal plates and ceramic shielding. It wouldn't stop a direct hit from a Korthak energy weapon, but it would protect her from shrapnel and glancing shots. More importantly, she had weapons now. Sarah had modified mining tools into combat equipment. A plasma cutter that could slice through Korthak armor, explosive charges with remote detonators, and a projectile weapon built from construction equipment that fired metal bolts at high velocity. The Korthak found one of her old hiding places 2 days later. They surrounded the building and demanded surrender, not knowing that Sarah had abandoned the location hours earlier. When they finally breached the entrance, they found only a message painted on the wall. You're looking in the wrong place. That night, Sarah struck at their main base. She infiltrated the spaceport using maintenance tunnels, emerging inside their command center. The attack was swift and brutal. Sarah disabled the guards with her plasma cutter and planted charges throughout the facility. The explosions destroyed their central computer systems and damaged 3 transport ships. More importantly, Sarah stole a Korthak weapon and communication device before escaping. Now she could monitor their communications and carry superior firepower. General Thexvar was furious when he surveyed the damage. How did one person penetrate our security? How did she get past our guards and sensors? Sir, a technician reported, the human used our own maintenance systems against us. She knew exactly where our blind spots were, which tunnels to use, and how to avoid our patrols. She's been studying us, Thexvar realized. While we thought she was hiding, she was learning our weaknesses. This human is more dangerous than an entire regiment of soldiers. The war between Sarah and the Korthak army was escalating. Every day brought new attacks, new casualties, and new evidence that they were facing an enemy unlike anything they had encountered before. The general's reputation was being destroyed by one human engineer who refused to surrender. But Thexvar was a proud warrior. He had conquered dozens of worlds and defeated countless enemies. He would not be humiliated by a single Deathworlder, no matter how clever she was. It was time to end this war personally. The general began planning his own trap, using everything he knew about human psychology and behavior. If the human cared about the colonists, he would use that compassion against her. It was time to force Sarah Chen into the open for a final confrontation. General Thexvar stood in the center of the colony's main square, surrounded by his remaining soldiers. At his feet knelt 50 Valari civilians, including Administrator Kelthera and Little Zintar. The Crystal people trembled with fear as Korthak weapons pointed at their heads. Human, Thexvar shouted, his voice echoing off the crystal buildings. I know you're listening. I know you can hear me through your stolen communication devices. Come out now or these innocents will die. Sarah watched from her hiding place in a collapsed building nearby. She had been expecting this trap for days, but seeing the hostages still filled her with rage. The Korthak general was using the Valari as bait, counting on her human emotions to force a confrontation. You have 1 hour, Thexvar continued. Show yourself, surrender your weapons, and these people live. Continue hiding like a coward, and I will execute them one by one, starting with the children. Sarah's hands clenched into fists. Every instinct told her to charge into the square and attack, but that was exactly what Thexvar wanted. The general had positioned his soldiers carefully, with overlapping fields of fire and no blind spots. It was a perfect kill zone designed to eliminate one target. Through her stolen Korthak communicator, Sarah could hear the soldiers' radio chatter. They were nervous but confident, sure that their trap would finally end the humans' war against them. Some of them were taking bets on how long she would last in direct combat. Sarah smiled coldly. The Korthak still didn't understand what they were dealing with. They saw one human as a minor threat, easily eliminated once forced into the open. They had no idea that humans had been fighting impossible odds for millions of years. She activated her communicator and spoke directly to General Thexvar. I'm here, General. But if you want me, you're going to have to come and get me yourself. Thexvar's head snapped up, searching for the source of the transmission. Where are you, human? Show yourself! I'm in the old crystal factory 3 blocks north of your position. Come alone and we'll settle this like warriors. Bring your army and I'll disappear back into the tunnels. Your choice. The general laughed, a harsh sound that made the Valari hostages whimper. You think I'm stupid enough to face you alone? You're a Deathworlder, bred for violence and killing. I have superior numbers and firepower. Then you're a coward, Sarah replied simply. Your soldiers have been telling stories about you, General. They say you were once a great warrior, that you won battles through personal combat and courage, but now you hide behind hostages and use children as shields. What happened to the mighty Thexvar? The general's face darkened with rage. Sarah had struck exactly the right nerve. Korthak culture valued personal honor and combat prowess above everything else. By questioning his courage in front of his soldiers, she had made it impossible for him to refuse the challenge. You dare question my honor? Thexvar snarled. I have defeated champions from 100 worlds. I have conquered systems and brought empires to their knees. Then prove it, Sarah said. Face me in single combat. Winner takes all. If you win, I surrender and the war ends. If I win, you and your forces leave this world and never return. Thexvar looked at his officers, seeing doubt in their eyes. His reputation was already damaged by the humans' successful campaign. If he refused this challenge, his soldiers would lose all respect for him. But if he accepted and won, he would be a hero who defeated a Deathworlder in personal combat. Very well, human. I accept your challenge. 1 hour from now in the Crystal Factory. Come alone and unarmed. We will use traditional Korthak combat weapons. Agreed, Sarah replied. And General, release the hostages first. This is between you and me now. Thexvar considered for a moment, then gestured to his soldiers. Let them go. Return to your homes and stay there. The Valari civilians scrambled away, Zintar looking back once toward Sarah's hiding place before disappearing into the crystal buildings. Sarah spent the next hour preparing for the fight of her life. She stripped off her makeshift armor and set aside her improvised weapons. If she was going to face the Korthak general in traditional combat, she would do it honestly. But honesty didn't mean stupidity. Sarah knew that Thexvar was larger, stronger, and more experienced in hand-to-hand combat. She would need every advantage she could get from her human heritage, speed, endurance, and the desperate cunning of a species that had climbed to the top of Earth's food chain. The Crystal Factory was a large, open building with a high ceiling and scattered equipment. Perfect for a duel. Thexvar arrived exactly on time carrying a pair of curved Korthak combat blades. He was an impressive figure, 7 feet tall, covered in thick scales, with muscles like steel cables. You're smaller than I expected, the general said as he tossed one blade to Sarah. Are you sure you're really from a death world? Sarah caught the weapon and tested its weight. It was heavier than she liked, but well balanced. Size isn't everything, General. Ask the dinosaurs. Thexvar looked confused by the reference, then shrugged. It doesn't matter. You've caused me considerable embarrassment, human. When I kill you, my reputation will be restored, and your people will learn to fear the Korthak Dominion. We'll see about that, Sarah replied, settling into a combat stance. The general attacked immediately, his blade whistling through the air where Sarah's head had been a split second earlier. He was fast for his size, but Sarah was faster. Earth's heavy gravity had given her reflexes that seemed supernatural to aliens from lighter worlds. Thexvar pressed his attack, using his reach advantage to keep Sarah at a distance. His technique was flawless, honed by years of training and combat experience. But Sarah fought like no opponent he had ever faced. She moved like water, flowing around his attacks and striking at unexpected angles. The battle raged across the factory floor. Thexvar's blade carved chunks from crystal pillars and metal equipment, but Sarah was never where he expected her to be. She danced around his attacks, wearing him down with quick cuts and slashes that penetrated his scaled hide. Hold still, the general roared, swinging his blade in a wide arc that would have split Sarah in half. Sarah ducked under the swing and came up inside his guard, her blade finding the gap between his armor plates. Thexvar stumbled backward, dark blood flowing from the wound. Impossible, he gasped. You're just a civilian, an engineer. I'm human, Sarah replied, circling him carefully. We don't give up, we don't surrender, and we protect what's ours. The general attacked again, but his movements were slower now. The wound was bleeding heavily, and Sarah's hit-and-run tactics were exhausting him. On Earth, humans had learned to hunt by running their prey to death, chasing animals until they collapsed from fatigue. Sarah was using the same strategy now. Thexvar realized he was losing. His superior strength and experience meant nothing if he couldn't land a decisive blow. The human was too fast, too clever, too determined. She fought with the desperate fury of a cornered predator. Your people will pay for this, he snarled, making one last desperate attack. Sarah sidestepped the clumsy thrust and drove her blade deep into the general's chest. Thexvar looked down at the weapon protruding from his body, shock and disbelief on his face. No, Sarah said quietly. My people will remember this, and so will yours. The general collapsed, his weapon clattering across the crystal floor. Sarah stood over him, breathing hard but victorious. Through the factory windows, she could see Korthak soldiers gathering outside, their weapons raised but their faces uncertain. Sarah picked up Thexvar's communicator and addressed his army. Your general is dead. According to the terms of our combat, you will leave this world immediately. Take your ships and go. You killed our commander, one officer replied. We should avenge him. You could try, Sarah said calmly. But I've spent 2 weeks learning your weaknesses, destroying your equipment and killing your soldiers. Your general was your best warrior, and he couldn't defeat me. What makes you think the rest of you can? The soldiers looked at each other nervously. They had seen what this one human could do when she was hiding and sabotaging. Now she had defeated their leader in fair combat. The myths about Deathworlders suddenly seemed very real. We will honor the agreement, the officer finally said. We will leave. Within hours, the Korthak fleet was gone. Sarah watched their ships disappear into hyperspace, knowing they would spread the story throughout the galaxy. One human had defeated an entire invasion force and humiliated a famous general. The reputation of Earth and its people would grow stronger. Administrator Kelithara found Sarah sitting by the water plant, exactly where she had been working when the invasion began. The Valari leader approached cautiously, still somewhat afraid but also deeply grateful. The repairs are finished, Sarah said without looking up. Your water system is working perfectly now. Thank you, Kelithara whispered. For everything. You saved us all. Little Zintar ran up to Sarah and threw his small arms around her leg. Will you stay with us? The child asked. Will you protect us if the bad soldiers come back? Sarah knelt down and smiled at the young Valari. I don't think they'll be back anytime soon. But if they do come, there will be other humans here to help you. That's what we do. We protect our friends. As the colony began rebuilding, Sarah filed her mission report with the Galactic Engineering Corps.